What's really inside Area 51? UFOs, alien tech, and secrets too strange to believe until now. Let's open the gates. In the middle of the Nevada desert, surrounded by mountains and dry lake beds, there's a stretch of scorched land with no official purpose. For years, it didn't exist on any map, no signs, no flight paths above it. Even mentioning it was enough to raise eyebrows. This is where it all started, what would later become one of the most mysterious places in the world, Area 51. It began in the 1950s. The Cold War was heating up, and the United States needed a remote site to test its newest reconnaissance aircraft. The government zeroed in on a dried-up lake bed called Groom Lake. Isolated, flat, and with almost no civilians for miles, it was the perfect hiding spot. The base was established under the name Paradise Ranch to attract workers, but there was nothing paradise-like about it. Just dust, secrecy, and fences that led to more fences. Officially, the base didn't exist until 2013. Yes, that recently. Before that, every photo was classified and every record blacked out. Even pilots flying nearby were told to avoid the airspace, which was marked as restricted with no explanation. If they flew over it, they risked being intercepted by fighter jets. This place wasn't just top secret, it was invisible. A base built from the shadows, in the shadows. But as spy planes started flying and strange shapes began lighting up the desert skies, rumors took flight too. That's where the mystery deepens, and that's where we're going next. To understand why Area 51 became so secretive, you have to look at what was flying above it. In the early days, this base wasn't a hideout for alien technology. It was a launch pad for some of the most advanced spy planes the world had ever seen. In the 1950s, the United States was desperate to spy on the Soviet Union without getting caught. Satellites didn't exist yet, so they needed something that could fly higher than any radar could reach. That's where the U-2 came in. It was long, thin, and fragile looking, but it could soar over 70,000 feet up, high enough to see Soviet missile sites without being detected. At least that was the plan. The U-2 was built in total secrecy, and it needed a test site just as hidden. Lockheed's Skunk Works team, led by legendary engineer Kelly Johnson, picked Groom Lake. They flew parts in undercover, used coded language, and made sure even workers didn't know what they were building until it was done. The first flight of the U-2 happened here. No one outside the project had a clue, but the U-2 wasn't enough. As Soviet radar improved, the United States needed something faster, much faster. Enter the SR-71 Blackbird. Sleek, jet black, and capable of flying over 3 times the speed of sound, it looked like something out of a sci-fi film. In fact, if someone saw it streaking across the sky, it's easy to understand why they'd think it was extraterrestrial. The SR-71 flew so fast and so high, no missile could catch it, and it was tested once again in the shadows of Area 51. These aircraft were years ahead of their time, some say even decades. And because of how secret they were, the public never got an explanation for the strange lights in the sky or the sonic booms echoing across the desert. People started talking. UFO rumors were born not from fiction but from real machines that weren't supposed to exist. Area 51 wasn't just hiding planes, it was hiding progress. And as the Cold War continued, what flew over Groom Lake only got weirder, faster, and harder to explain. Beneath the veil of all those aircraft tests was the land itself, Groom Lake. A bone-dry, ancient lake bed in the middle of nowhere, it became the perfect blank canvas for a hidden world to rise. From above, it looks empty, but in reality, it's anything but. Over the years, the facility at Groom Lake expanded in ways that were never publicly documented. Massive hangars appeared, runways longer than commercial airports were built, roads, sensors, fuel depots, housing units, an entire infrastructure designed for something far more advanced than simple air testing. What began as a few tents and a strip of asphalt gradually turned into a self-contained base that could operate off the grid, away from satellites, reporters, or even most of the United States government. Workers were flown in on unmarked planes, and deliveries came at night. Even the trucks bringing in equipment were sometimes covered and escorted. Many believe some of these hangars go underground, deep enough to escape drone surveillance and potentially large enough to house more than just aircraft. Security at Groom Lake is notoriously tight. White SUVs with blacked-out windows patrol the surrounding hills. Sensors are embedded in the sand. Trespassers don't get warnings. They're met with military-style commands and fines that make sure they never try again. And still, no official blueprints of the base exist in the public domain. What's known comes from satellite images, rare whistleblowers, and occasional slips in government documents. But perhaps the strangest part isn't what's above ground, it's what might lie beneath it. Some satellite scans show heat signatures inconsistent with normal buildings. Others have spotted strange vehicle tracks that vanish at certain points, as if the roads continue underground. It's led to endless theories, labs, storage vaults, or hidden tunnels leading even deeper into the desert. And it's here, at Groom Lake, where one of the most controversial stories about Area 51 begins, one that brought the word alien into every conversation about the base. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar appeared on television under a shadowed silhouette and changed the way the world viewed Area 51 forever. He claimed to have worked not directly at the base itself, but at a nearby facility called S4, hidden within the Papoose Mountains. According to him, S4 was part of a classified program focused on reverse engineering technology. Technology, he said, wasn't built by humans. Lazar described working on a sleek metallic disc, one of 9 stored at the facility. He didn't call it a prototype or a captured jet. He said plainly that it was not from this Earth. The craft supposedly used a form of propulsion that manipulated gravity, bending space in a way our physics didn't account for. His descriptions went further. The spacecraft had no visible seams, no bolts, no wiring. The inside was cramped and the seats were unusually small, far too small for the average adult human. Lazar believed the technology wasn't just advanced, it was designed by beings unlike us. He never claimed to meet these beings, but hinted that others on the project might have been briefed on their origin. The implication was clear: this was alien technology, possibly recovered from an earlier crash. Skeptics were quick to point out holes in his story: missing school records, unverifiable employment history. But there were strange consistencies too. He correctly described certain details about unmarked aircraft flights over Groom Lake before they were publicly acknowledged. His knowledge of the base's layout, access routes, and flight schedules was oddly accurate. Even some former workers later admitted that parts of his story lined up with real protocols used during highly classified work. Most mainstream scientists remain cautious. There's no concrete proof of alien craft, no photos, no official documents. But Lazar's claims have stayed in public consciousness for decades, partly because he didn't seem to seek fame, and partly because parts of his story feel just plausible enough. And if what he said is even partially true, it suggests that Area 51 isn't just about secret aircraft. It could be the center of something much bigger. The next question naturally follows. If the government really did recover a craft not built on Earth, where did it come from? Some believe the answer lies in one of the most controversial incidents in UFO history. Let's go back to 1947. Let's talk about Roswell. In July 1947, something strange crashed near Roswell, New Mexico. At first, the U.S. military publicly announced it had recovered a flying disc. That headline ran in local newspapers, setting off immediate interest. But within a day, officials changed their story, claiming it was just a weather balloon. The original press release was called a mistake, and the debris was quickly flown away to unknown locations. To many, that sudden reversal didn't sit right, and over time, Roswell became the center of countless theories. The official explanation much later was that the wreckage belonged to Project Mogul, a top-secret balloon designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. That's possible. But then, why the secrecy? Why the armed guards? Why did witnesses, including ranchers and even some military personnel, describe materials that couldn't be burned, bent, or broken? Some even claim to have seen small humanoid bodies quickly taken away under military escort. Here's where Area 51 enters the picture. Though the crash site was hundreds of miles away, researchers believe the recovered debris, whatever it truly was transferred to Nevada for further study. At the time, the base at Groom Lake didn't exist publicly. That made it the perfect location to quietly store, examine, and potentially reconstruct something extraordinary. Over the decades, declassified documents have confirmed that Roswell was linked to real covert operations. Still, no document mentions UFOs or extraterrestrials. And yet, whistleblowers and anonymous sources continue to insist that something was indeed recovered, something the government couldn't explain. If those claims hold even a fraction of truth, it's not hard to see why Area 51 became the place most likely to hide the wreckage. Roswell wasn't just a strange moment in history, it laid the foundation for nearly every modern UFO conspiracy. And while the incident itself is still debated, what followed it was even more bizarre. Years of sightings over military bases, strange shapes in the sky, and witness accounts that suggest Roswell wasn't an isolated event. Since the 1950s, reports of disc-shaped objects flying above and around Area 51 have been surprisingly consistent. Locals, private pilots, and even base contractors have described glowing crafts darting silently through the sky, moving in ways no conventional aircraft could. Sharp turns without slowing down, hovering completely still, then vanishing without sound. These weren't just rumors passed around campfires. Some of these sightings came from trained observers and technical staff. One retired radar technician claimed his instruments picked up returns moving faster than any known plane, with no transponders and no heat trails. Another contractor working near Groom Lake told journalists that on some nights you could see discs lifting off vertically, changing direction mid-air with zero aerodynamic drag. Of course, these accounts are hard to verify. But when you hear the same types of stories over the span of decades from unrelated people with nothing to gain, it starts to raise questions. Some explanations point to secret flight testing. That's very likely. But there are details in some sightings that don't quite match anything man-made. No exhaust, no visible propulsion, no wings. A few former insiders, speaking anonymously, have gone further. They claim at least one of these discs wasn't built by the US, or by any other country on Earth. They speak of recovered technology, partially functional, being test-flown in remote sectors of the base. Even Bob Lazar's account mentions regular test flights of a gravity-based craft from inside a hangar camouflaged into the mountainside. Whether these objects are prototypes of future weapons or something more, the secrecy surrounding them is what feeds the mystery. Why not just say they're drones? Why the silence, the lockdowns, and the threats to anyone caught filming? If these crafts are real and under active testing, then someone somewhere is flying machines the world hasn't even begun to understand. And if they're not, why are they being seen again and again over a place that officially doesn't allow such sightings to exist? If you head to a certain terminal at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas, you'll find a plain white building with no logos and no signs. Outside there are several small passenger jets painted white with a single red stripe. They don't carry any markings, no airline names, and no publicly available schedules. Yet they take off and land like clockwork, every weekday morning and evening. These are the Janet flights, and their only job is to shuttle employees to and from places like Area 51. The name Janet doesn't appear in any official airline directory. It's a call sign, used in radio transmissions. Some speculate it stands for just another non-existent terminal, though no one's confirmed it. The planes themselves are operated under contract with the US Air Force, and their exact destinations are blacked out from flight trackers the moment they leave Las Vegas. Workers board with security badges, and once the doors close, that's the last anyone sees until the planes vanish into restricted airspace. Passengers are likely engineers, intelligence analysts, project managers, people involved in black-budget defense work. Once in the air, they head toward Groom Lake and other classified testing areas. It's the only airline in the US where boarding requires government clearance and where destinations are hidden under code names. The secrecy isn't just for protection, it's about separation. Employees working on top-tier projects are expected to leave everything behind when they board. No phones, no personal items, no questions asked. This degree of control and isolation is rarely seen outside of intelligence operations. Janet flights have never been officially acknowledged by the Department of Defense in detail, but their existence is obvious, photographed daily by civilian aviation watchers. The mystery lies not in whether they're real, but what they're transporting. Whatever's happening at Area 51 and nearby sites, it's considered important enough to operate a private airline with more security than some international airports. And that brings up even stranger possibilities about what's going on behind those fences. Area 51 has always been tied to advanced aircraft, but some of the claims connected to the base go far beyond jets and radar systems. Over the years, whispers have grown louder about more experimental programs, ones that stretch into areas like atmospheric manipulation and psychological control. The concept of weather modification isn't science fiction. In fact, during the Vietnam War, the US military used cloud seeding in Operation Popeye to extend the monsoon season. That was real. So it's not a leap to consider that such ideas may have evolved in the decades since. Some researchers believe that remote bases like Area 51 would be ideal environments for testing directed energy systems or weather-related experiments, far from public scrutiny and under total environmental control. There are also persistent claims, especially from ex-military personnel, that certain sections of the base were involved in researching how electromagnetic fields might influence the human brain. While much of this sounds like science fiction, declassified documents from past programs like MK Ultra reveal that the government has tested such concepts before. So even if these experiments didn't start at Area 51, it's not unreasonable to consider that they may have been continued there, away from public records. Reports from some former workers mention entire buildings where access was restricted even to those with high clearance. Inside, according to a few anonymous sources, were strange chambers, electromagnetic isolation rooms, and experimental arrays designed to disrupt electronic signals, or possibly even brainwave patterns. Again, none of this is confirmed, but the consistency of these stories across multiple decades and witnesses is enough to raise eyebrows. What's compelling isn't just the theories themselves, but how tightly they're wrapped in secrecy. If there's nothing unusual happening, why hide the data so aggressively? Why allow public myths to grow unchecked? Maybe it's intentional. Maybe feeding wild speculation is safer than releasing the truth. Because while alien stories capture headlines, it might be the human-made tech that's more dangerous, and more real. While Area 51 gets most of the attention, it's not the only mysterious location hidden in the Nevada desert. In fact, it might not even be the most secretive. Roughly 70 miles northwest of Groom Lake lies another high-security military zone known as the Tonopah Test Range. Some people call it Area 52. It's used for testing drones, advanced weapons, and classified systems, but unlike Area 51, it's rarely mentioned in media or public records. Some researchers believe that the really sensitive projects may have shifted here over time, as attention to Area 51 grew too loud. Tonopah is surrounded by even more restricted airspace than Groom Lake, and satellite images show an expanding network of hangars, runways, and underground-looking structures. The entire area is heavily guarded, and entry is nearly impossible without military clearance. Unlike Groom Lake, there are fewer civilian reports of sightings or strange phenomena here, likely because it's even more cut off from roads and observation points. That silence only fuels speculation that the work being done at Tonopah may be more advanced than what the public assumes. Then there's Dugway Proving Ground in Utah, which has been described by some insiders as Area 51's chemical cousin. It's where the military tests biological agents, advanced detection systems, and possibly even containment technologies. Unlike Groom Lake, Dugway has confirmed links to chemical and biological defense programs. That adds another layer of mystery. If Area 51 is for flight systems, and Dugway is for biotesting, how many other bases are out there, each hiding a different branch of covert science? The vast Nevada Test and Training Range, which includes Area 51 and Tonopah, spans over 2.9 million acres. That's bigger than some U.S. states. Not all of it is used for air testing. Some sections are rumored to be dedicated to underground facilities, sensor networks, and next-gen surveillance tech. And the truth is, nobody outside those programs really knows how deep it all goes, literally or figuratively. For decades, the official line was that Area 51 didn't exist. That silence helped keep operations invisible, but it also made accountability nearly impossible. In the 1990s, that changed when a group of former workers filed a lawsuit against the US government. Their claim? That they had been exposed to hazardous materials while working at the base? And that the government was refusing to acknowledge their illnesses or even confirm their employment. These weren't wild conspiracy theorists, they were technicians, truck drivers, and contractors who said they had handled barrels of unknown substances, operated near burning pits filled with strange waste, and suffered unexplained health issues years later. But because the government refused to officially admit that Area 51 was real, the workers couldn't even prove where they had been employed. Their medical cases were stuck in limbo. In 1995, the Clinton administration signed an executive order exempting the Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada from environmental disclosure laws. That wording, without ever naming Area 51, was the first public hint that the base was real. The reason for the exemption? National security. But critics argued it was just a way to avoid court rulings that would have forced officials to admit to the dumping of toxic materials. Journalists and watchdog groups tried to investigate, but nearly every request was blocked under classification rules. Even today, much of what happened during that era remains locked away. The workers who came forward never saw compensation. Some passed away while still fighting for recognition. Their stories rarely make headlines, but they provide a rare, grounded look into the consequences of extreme secrecy. It's easy to focus on UFOs and alien tech, but sometimes the more troubling story is the human one. When secrecy goes so deep that even workers can't speak about what they were exposed to, it raises serious questions. Not just about what's being hidden, but about who's being protected. Because if these cases are just the tip of the iceberg, what else is buried under decades of classified silence? Decades after its existence was unofficially acknowledged, Area 51 remains shrouded in secrecy. In a world of leaks and satellites, this one patch of desert still hides something that even now, the public isn't allowed to understand. The question has shifted from what's inside to why don't we know? Sure, we've seen spy planes and heard about Cold War tech, but those are old programs, safe to reveal. What's never discussed are the current projects, the ones that require expanding hangars, deeper underground structures, and airspace so restricted that not even satellites catch details clearly. Construction continues, but no one explains why. Some believe what's hidden isn't just advanced aircraft, it's propulsion systems that break current physics, energy sources decades ahead of anything commercial, or maybe something recovered and still being studied. Others think it's about control, keeping revolutionary discoveries out of public hands until the time is right. Or perhaps forever. What makes Area 51 so unique is how successfully it hides in plain sight. The government doesn't deny it anymore, but it still refuses to talk. Every release is carefully limited, every rumor is left unconfirmed. The mystery isn't accidental, it's intentional. And that might be the greatest secret of all, not what they're hiding, but that they've convinced the world to stop expecting real answers. That's about it. What do you think is really happening in Area 51? Share your theories in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.